experts have decided on the 50 greatest treasures discovered by you, the public, up and down the country, in rivers, gardens, fields and homes.
Our countdown has so far taken us to number 38. Tonight we've got 12 more extraordinary treasures.
Coming up, gold hidden from the Nazis.
They were solid gold coins with a Statue of Liberty going da-da.
Uncovering a thief's stash.
I think you were a Viking with a bad attitude.
And I go diving for Roman riches.
What a result!
But first, they say a week is a long time in politics. How about 2,000 years?
A fantastically rare coin recently found in Kent reveals some interesting similarities between Iron Age tribal chieftains and today's politicians.
Power. For thousands of years, coins have symbolised power. Since the Iron Age, you've been able to tell from the change in your pocket who is the head of state. Normally, a coin has the ruler's head on one side and a design on the other. But what was strikingly different about a recent find was that the coin made reference to two kings, one on each side. And that tells us that something pretty curious was happening in the power politics of the time.
Kent, 2010, an amateur archaeologist, Danny Baldock, finds a gold coin in a field outside Dover, but this is a coin unlike any other. So I'm going to the British Museum to investigate the mystery of the Iron Age coin with two kings.
Ian. Hello.
Hello.
So this is the coin that has two kings on it.
Absolutely, yes. This is Anna Ravito here. You can see on one side the name starting up here. The other side has this sort of geometric pattern, and within the sections between the wreath design on here, you can see letters EPPI. That's Epilus.
Before this coin was found, historians knew of the Iron Age king of Kent, Epilus, but had never heard of Anna Ravito.
Coins are so much more than currency. In a time before newspapers or television, they were powerful propaganda. If I decode this coin, Anna Ravito is saying, look, I'm sophisticated. I issue gold coins like those clever Romans. But at the same time, he reveals his weakness. I'm not strong enough to rule without Epilus. And then Epilus is saying, I'm much stronger than the Anna Ravito, but not strong enough to rule without his help.
Danny gave this remarkable coin, known as a stater, to the British Museum, where it would take pride of place in a new exhibition. Sadly, Danny has died, so for his widow, Karen, this coin has an extra special meaning.
How do you think he would feel knowing that it's now in the British Museum?
I think he'd be astounded. I mean, it was his dearest wish that it would come to the British Museum because he felt it was part of the heritage of the people. I think he was a very private man, so he would have been quite modest about it.
And now Danny will be a footnote in an important increase in our knowledge of pre-Roman British history.
Yes, exactly. It's his legacy to the nation, if you like.
In honour of our current British political arrangements, I present you with the specially minted Coalition Stater. It's double-headed, featuring our dual leaders, Cameronus and Cleggus. Might there be a danger that our own Anna Ravito, Mr. Nick Clegg, might be forgotten by history? Let's give future archaeologists a chance to rediscover him in 2,000 years' time by tossing our Coalition Stater into the Thames.
Now to another 2,000-year-old find, this time from Wales. One that helps to explain British behaviour and traditions, especially when it comes to booze.
There's no getting away from the fact that we Brits love a good drink, and we Welsh in particular know how to have a good time. But whilst today we seem to be a nation obsessed with binge drinking, compared to our ancestors, we're just a bunch of lightweights. Proof of our hard drinking past was found in a marsh near Newport in South Wales in 2007, when security guard Craig Mills recovered an ancient beer tankard, thrown into the bog by its owner at some point during the Iron Age. But this tankard was no ordinary drinking vessel. Apparently, this tankard doesn't just hold 1 pint. Oh no, it holds 1, 2, 3, 4 pints of beer, which means this guy must have been a serious drinker. I'm off to the National Museum Wales to find out about the drinking this chap might have done and to see this tankard for myself. I wasn't expecting this.
This is a wooden stave-built tankard. We think that perhaps these things were passed around, groups of people sharing in these drinking and perhaps feasting events at this time.
What do you know about these drinking sessions? What were they like?
I think we have to use a bit of imagination in this. Perhaps we can think of a lot of boasting going on, storytelling, and also a little bit of politics of the time.
Iron binge drinking is about much more than getting hammered. It was a ritual to help you get in touch with the gods. If these gatherings of drinking sessions were so important, and the tankard being central to all of that, why would you throw it in a bog?
Well, we don't think it was thrown. We think it was carefully placed.
That's really weird. Why would you place your tankard into a smelly old bog? To find out, I'm meeting Miranda Aldhouse Green, an expert in Iron Age behaviour. Where else but in an ancient bog?
When people are in crisis, they tend to call to gods for help and to give to the gods the most precious things that they own in order to get the gods on side to help them avert this terrible crisis.
For this ancient drinker to have placed his tankard into a bog, he must have really wanted the gods to help. Was where they made the sacrifice really important?
A place like this, a sort of edgy place, sort of half land, half water, very wild, remote, uncultivated land, you're as close to the gods as you can get. And that's why you actually put these objects in the ground and in water at places like this.
As a true Welshman, I'm sure that before they sacrificed the tankard, there was lots of ritual drinking. 2,000 years ago, drunkenness was next to godliness. That must have been some special beer they brewed back then. And I'd like to try some, so we've given a local brewery the recipe for Iron Age ale based on archaeological research. It's got some unusual ingredients, including strange plants like mugwort and henbane. Here you go. As they say in these parts, iechyd da, good health. Yeah, that's not good. There's a severe sour aftertaste.
Our next two finders have really hit the jackpot because they have discovered over 5,000 objects just from one small spot here in County Durham. And the incredible thing is that they've done that without a single bit of digging, because each and every find comes from under those waters.
Divers Bob Middlemass and Rolf Mitchinson are passionate treasure hunters.
I know that you've been doing this for 25 years, you two. You are pretty much archaeology junkies. Do you not ever have a day when you wake up and think, today I'm going to stop doing all of this?
No. It's just the excitement of the hunt to find out what's underneath that river.
I did one time, you know, but that was the day I got married.
Their finds are being researched at the British Museum.
the basement of the British Museum where Bob and Rolf's finds are being examined. And they're creating quite a lot of work for people here, in a good way.
Philippa Walton has the Herculean task of cataloguing them all.
Hi, Philippa.
Hi.
There is so much of it, isn't there?
I think I've probably got about a quarter out here today.
Their massive discovery is on the list because it's had an impact on our understanding of the day-to-day lives of our ancestors, in particular the Romans. So what have they found?
We've got stuff which women might have used for applying makeup.
I've got something a bit like that in my makeup bag as well. I love that. I love the fact that there are some designs that just never change over
Well, if
thousands
it
of
works,
years.
why change it?
Yeah.
We've got a lot of gold jewellery from the river. So we've got this beautiful gold ring which has got a glass bead inset in it.
You get this real snapshot of life in the Roman period.
Yeah, you've got rich and poor, men and women, children. There are some objects which are definitely religious in nature. We've got this lovely Cupid figurine here.
He's great, isn't he?
I particularly like his top knot.
Yes. I have to say, it sounds a bit weird, this, but I love Cupid's buttocks. Because they've always got such pert buttocks,
They are
haven't
very
they?
pert, yeah.
Yeah. I hate to tell you this, but they have invited me to go and have a look for a few more.
No! I'll be cataloguing all these for the rest of my life.
Later in the programme, I'll be joining Bob and Rolf diving to find treasure of my own and uncovering the mystery of a stash of gold the Nazis would have loved to have got their hands on.
We're counting down the top 50 objects discovered by the British public. Fascinating finds that have changed the way we view our past.
Now, you can get involved too. This week, we're looking for new treasures. So if you think you found something that the British Museum should see, then just go to itv.com/treasure. And this Sunday, we'll be revealing the best new items. We believe that we live in a pretty rational age, and yet people still avoid walking under ladders, they salute magpies, and they wake up with a feeling of dread on the morning of Friday the 13th. I'd like to think I'm not particularly superstitious, but actually I love wearing this little amulet, which originally belonged to a Roman woman who thought that it would bring her good luck. This, like our next item, comes from an age where magicians and sorcerers were as respected as doctors are today, and when curses and charms were big business.
We sent Mylene Klass back to the Castle Museum in her hometown of Norwich to investigate a Roman magical charm inscribed with a secret message.
This tiny piece of what looks like gold foil was found in some turf by the Norfolk Broads. It's called the Billingford amulet, and it's made of thin gold leaf. Now, if you look really closely, you can see that it's covered in lots of different shapes and symbols, and what actually looks like letters.
The only person who could crack this code was Dr. Roger Tomlin, a lecturer at Oxford University, who was asked to put his mind to the task. He soon discovered that this was no ordinary writing.
Someone took a very sharp needle-pointed stylus and wrote very fluently in the surface of the gold. He was writing in Latin and in Greek. It was done by a professional magician, if you like.
It's really quite hard to see in detail what this says or what the patterns are.
To crack the code, Dr. Tomlin drew an outline of the letters and symbols.
You've got what looks superficially like Greek letters in the first two lines here, but they're not actually Greek letters, but magical letters. Then you have the meat of it, which is Dathe Saluthem et Victoriam, give well-being, health, and victory.
The writing on this slip of gold leaf shows that it was carried by someone as a magical charm. But who?
Here he's written in tiny little Roman letters, Tib Claudium Similem, which is Tiberius Claudius Similis.
Tiberius Claudius Similis. It's rare that a treasure reveals the actual name of its owner. Tiberius was a Roman, probably a soldier, and he would have brought the charm with him to Britain to try and help keep him safe.
It rolled into a tight cylinder, and then it was put in an amulet case, which is a cylinder of gold with two lugs on it and a chain, and you wear it round your neck. And then he must have dropped it and lost it.
Tiberius would have been devastated to have lost this. He could never have guessed that thousands of years later, somebody else would find it, and his name would be added to the history books.
From a lost charm in Norfolk to some amazing coins in Wales.
In the 1990s, Archie Gillespie and Pete Corbett found a handful of 1,200-year-old coins and a ringed pin in a field in Llanbedrogog. I pronounced it well, I think, on the island of Anglesey.
Their finds led experts to excavate the area, and it opened up a new chapter in Welsh history. Back in the 9th century, the Vikings controlled some of the most important towns in Britain. But the Welsh in Anglesey fought hard to stop them from gaining a foothold in Wales. Or at least, that's what we've always believed. The Llanbedrogog finds tell a different story. Silver, merchants' weights, even a stunning whetstone reveal the site was regularly used by the Vikings as a stop-off point, like a service station, on their way to other towns and raids. These fascinating artefacts give us the first physical evidence that the Vikings spent time in North Wales. So it's fitting that they should be on display now in the National Museum of Wales. Not all finds have to be ancient to open a window on our past. Bettany has been uncovering a story of treasure trove found in a quiet London garden that sheds light on a dark time in our recent history.
The coins were found by care worker Terry Castle, who was digging a frog pond with volunteers here in the garden of these flats.
This is one of the things that I just love about archaeology, because who'd have thought that treasure could have emerged from something as unpromising looking as that?
I'm off to meet the finder, Terry.
Tell me what happened. So you're there with a shovel, are you? And then you just struck something, or?
The volunteer just calls me and says, something is here, what's this, Tel? Yeah. So I walk over and see a jar, top of a jar sticking out an inch. It was a bit scary because it was so heavy. It's not going to be stones, is it?
No.
Weights, food.
A body, or, I mean, you don't know,
body
do you?
parts, yeah.
Yeah, it could be something
Oh,
horrible.
yeah, I did think that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Anyway, I took off the top layer and saw some rims of coins, which I thought were pennies, old pennies.
Yeah.
But as I took the paper off more, they were gold, they were solid gold coins.
Terry was immediately suspicious. Who would have left a fortune in gold coins buried in a garden? And why?
I wasn't sure where it came from. I thought it could have been the Cray twins or Bent Cops. It's not something I needed to think about. It was get the museum here quick.
Terry had found something he just couldn't explain. The Hackney coins weren't ancient. They weren't even British.
These are $20 coins known as the Double Eagle. They were first minted in the middle of the 19th century. They're made of 22-carat solid gold.
To get some answers, an appeal was launched in the Hackney Gazette, asking local people for clues. Seeing the enticing headline, Stephen Selby decided to try to crack the case on his own.
I went into the newsagents and saw a picture of gold coins with the word treasure mystery. And I thought, that's interesting, I love treasure. So I went into the Times archives and I put in $20 double-headed Eagles Hackney. Bingo. There was an article in 1952.
What Stephen found in the article defied belief. An identical jar of American $20 coins had been unearthed in the very same garden in the 1950s.
What was most interesting was the name of a man who claimed the gold, Martin Salzbacher.
If Martin Salzbacher claimed the coins in 1952, surely the recent discovery made at the same property must be his as well. The British Museum decided to do some digging. They soon discovered that Martin had passed away in the 1980s, but his son Max was living in Israel. He's flown back to England to visit the garden where the gold was found, the site of his childhood home.
When were you last here, Max?
The 8th of September 1940.
1940?
Yes, in fact, you see, my brother and I were evacuated since there was the danger of invasion. After the bombing, I never came back here. It was too terrible to think about it.
Max was evacuated, but his Uncle Fritz and other members of the family remained in wartime London.
September the 3rd, we often talk about the spirit of the Blitz, but rarely about the very real fear in those darkest days of the war, a fear of a full-scale Nazi invasion.
The terrifying vision of a Nazi-occupied Britain must have played some part in Max's family's desperate actions. Fearing that the banks would be raided by the Nazis, the family gold was hidden in 2 jars and buried in the garden. The invasion never came, but the bombs did. The Sulzbacher house took a direct hit. There were no survivors.
The whole house collapsed, you see, and there were still books and everything, which my mother then, I remember to my horror, rescued my grandfather's clothes, and we were very short of money, and I remember he was wearing his trousers. Oh, dear, oh dear. I was 10, 11, you see, and short of clothing.
The secret of the whereabouts of the hidden gold was lost, along with the members of Max's family. In November 2011, Max auctioned the coins. They sold for £83,000. He's planning to use some of the money to renovate the gravestones of his family who died that day in the Blitz. He's also given 1 coin to the finder, Terry.
A very moving story and an astonishing treasure find. Still to come, trawling the river for hidden treasure.
That is fantastic.
And an item you'd rather not find in your garden.
Why was a witch living 130 yards away from St. Peter's Church down the road?
At the British Museum, experts are busy cataloguing the 5,000 treasures found by divers Bob and Rolf in a river that runs through a small village in County Durham. Close on 2,000 years ago, this sleepy place was at the heart of the Roman military network.
These remains are just a tiny fraction of the original Roman fort. In its heyday, there would have been thousands of soldiers garrisoned here. And just beyond that wall, there was a civilian settlement packed with innkeepers and merchants and brothels and little factories. But for everyone who lived and worked here, the really special place lay just beyond those trees, the sacred river.
For hundreds of years, Romans made offerings to their gods here.
Just imagine a Roman soldier marching north, crossing the river here and pausing for a moment on the bridge, throwing into the waters some little bit of his hard-earned income and praying fervently that he would have good luck against the barbarian tribes of the north.
Now I'm joining Bob and Rolf as we try to recover some more ancient artefacts from the river.
You said archaeology wasn't a glamorous profession. Roman Britain, here we come.
Equipped with snorkels and a waterproof metal detector, we head out to the exact spot where the old Roman bridge used to be.
Sniffy, isn't it?
Very sniffy, yeah, it's the time of year for the mosque. Do you want to put your mask on?
Yeah. Gone a bit breathless with excitement.
Time to take the plunge back through 20 centuries of history. And to my astonishment, almost immediately, I found something. A piece of beautiful Roman Samian pottery.
That is fantastic.
Let's have a look. It's Eusebian, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, it's got a pattern
It
on.
is Eusebian. Look.
You lucky devil. That's not supposed to happen.
I know. This is just fantastic. I've been down there 10 seconds, I think. And this is a Samian ware. So this is a really popular kind of imported pottery. It was the kind of swanky thing they had on their dining table. This would be worth quite a bit, wouldn't it? You keep it safe for me.
Yep, will do.
You better.
Try not to lose it.
Good stuff. I think we should get back down there.
Brilliant. Let's go.
I've got the bug. Let's hope this river gives up some more of its treasures.
I think this is all just rubbish, but it is Roman rubbish.
It's a spoon.
It is a spoon. It's beautiful. Look. Beautiful. Oh, he's back for more. Very sticky.
It's the river that just keeps on giving.
It's a pretty beefy Roman nail.
Then a moment I'll remember for years.
What? Hello. What have I got?
What a result! So in amongst the mud and the crud and the silt there is a little silver Roman coin. This is amazing because this is a beautiful, beautiful example. You can see the writing on the outside, it's Antoninus. So this is almost certainly the emperor who's had these coins minted. That is a beautiful thing, moment of a lifetime.
It was quite a morning's haul, and I'm thrilled to have added to this collection. The pieces we found will all go back to the British Museum for cataloguing.
This was once one of the most holy places in the whole of Roman Britain, and we only know about it thanks to Bob and Rolf.
Was it really as easy as that?
It absolutely was, and I have to say, finding that coin was a great moment, if possibly not my most glamorous.
Steady on, steady on. Our next object doesn't seem like treasure at all. It doesn't sparkle, it doesn't shine. And it was filled with something really rather revolting, a mixture of hair, toenail clippings and human urine.
But it does come from a time when the world believed in witches.
In the heart of Lincolnshire lies the village of Navenby. A picture of rural tranquility. But beneath the surface lies evidence of the dark arts, of the occult and black magic.
It was about 1999. My wife and I were busy clearing out this area of the garden. She suddenly said to me, "Hey, stop, I've found something interesting." And sure enough, there in the ground was this round green bottle. There were some interesting things inside: brass hooks, pins, and also a piece of leather.
When Michael took the object to his local museum, they told him that it was, in fact, a witch's bottle.
Of course, that caused some consternation at the time by my wife, who thought, oh, witches, bad spells. Had a witch actually lived here in some hut or the other? And if so, why was a witch living 130 yards away from St. Peter's Church down the road?
Tales of witchcraft can be traced back through the ages. Witches were believed to cast spells, hold nighttime orgies, and worship the devil.
Okay, so here we have our famous witch bottle. Quite a creepy, horrible little thing, really.
The key to the alleged magical power of the witch bottle of Navenby lies not with the bottle, but with the contents.
We've got nails, pins, leather, and what we don't see anymore, but certainly would have been in here, is things like human hair, human nail clippings, and worst of all, human urine. These types of objects are always called witch bottles, but actually they're an antidote against witchcraft. So, for example, if you became ill, the reason was usually thought to be because someone in the village was throwing an evil spell onto you. And the objects that are found within these bottles are a very specific recipe to throw it back on the person who sent you it. Now, in this particular example, this recipe was concocted basically to give us cystitis, to make it very difficult to go to the loo, as if you're passing pins.
The bottle now resides in the Museum of Lincolnshire Life. And it's on the list because it's such an unusual find.
I'm lucky that I've never actually lost my wallet. But that's exactly what the owner of this next item did a couple of thousand years ago. And considering what was in it, he must have been really upset.
In August 2003, radiologist Heather Masters was working her normal shift at Sandringham Hospital in Norfolk when she unwittingly found herself at the heart of an archaeological mystery.
This very strange man turned up in shorts and a little bit of mud around him with a box with an artefact in, and he was quite excited about this artefact. And I looked at it and it was just a piece of bone covered in mud, and I'm thinking, nutter. This is the strange man that turned up on that day with this piece of bone, expecting it to have treasure in.
We knew there was something in the bone, and I shook it, and you could hear something rattling.
When we actually processed the film and saw it, I was absolutely astounded.
There were 20 coins, but we also found a further 19 surrounding the area where we found the bone.
And what sort of age are we looking at?
2,000 years ago, the Iron Age.
Yeah.
And fantastic, wonderful.
It was possible that people actually used these bones, sheared off, to store things, to hide them. I don't often X-ray cow bones. This is my first experience. Don't mind if it's not my last, especially if they're full of gold coins.
The Sedgeford Hoard now resides at King's Lynn Museum, who raised the £7,700 needed to buy it. Still to come, from under the floorboards, a massive hoard of hidden coins.
He came in not just with a few, but 7,000 of the things.
Gosh. And one of the most beautiful treasures the British Museum has ever seen.
It came out the ground shining, bright, shiny gold.
We're counting down the top 50 objects discovered by the British public. And don't forget, this week you can get involved. If you found something you think the British Museum here might like to see, then go to itv.com/treasure, and we'll be revealing the best of the new items on Sunday.
Now, the 10th century in Yorkshire was a time of turmoil and violence, a time to lock up your daughters and bury your treasure.
In a field not far from here, over 1,000 years ago, one man buried his hoard of gold jewellery, but never came back. It lay undiscovered until Frank came along.
I got this signal that, to be truthful, sounded like a piece of lead. So I dug a sod out of the field and found an item in my hand, and it was a piece of gold. And it came out of the ground shining, absolutely bright, shiny gold, amazing. A foot away from that piece, got another really strong signal and dug down, and a ring popped out, a tingling sensation. Went across my chest from one side to the other, and a bit like an electric shock. And at that point, yeah, I got excited. That really did. It was absolutely amazing.
Shop blaster Frank uncovered a fabulous stash of medieval bling. The hoard includes 4 gold rings and a gold ingot. He thinks they could be Viking treasure, but still wants to know how they came to be buried in a field.
I think this fella buried these things out of the way so that people who knew him wouldn't find them. I don't think he worked hard for them. I think he took them from someone else. I think he were a Viking with a bad attitude. That's what I think.
Leeds Museum, where the rings are kept, have a theory about how the stash might have ended up here. Frank hasn't seen his treasure for almost 4 years.
How does it feel to be seeing these for the first time in so long?
It really brings it home how nice they are. I haven't seen them as clean as this. They're beautiful, aren't they?
It really is absolutely stunning. It's a 10th century ring. Would you like to hold it again?
I would. Oh, wow.
And it's heavy, isn't it?
It is.
Nearly an ounce of gold in that.
I presume you've noticed there's a slight abrasion, possibly caused by a bladed type object. We wondered if this could have actually been cut off a man's hand. I'm quite sure some Viking has got something to do with this somewhere, some big bad Viking.
The theory is that this could be the loot from a 10th century theft.
Right.
Where somebody's actually stolen these objects. You have objects from different centuries all buried together. So are you proud of finding these items?
I'm very proud, I really am. People are going to be studying, debating who lost them, who they belong to, and I hope they never find out. I hope it's a debate that goes on for hundreds of years, so yeah.
I'm sure it will.
I'm very proud, yeah.
Leeds Museum raised the 171,000 they were valued at, with half going to Frank and the other half to the landowner.
You know that old northern expression where there's muck, there's brass? Well, this next object, seen glinting in the muck of an East Yorkshire pig farm, was certainly valuable, but it wasn't brass, it was gold.
Pigs aren't noted for their interest in archaeology. But it was the snuffling of their snouts that uncovered a beautifully carved cross, which was then picked up by a keen-eyed farmer.
This cross is such a beautiful object, an emblem of real faith.
But the reason why this find is so exceptional is because it is one of the earliest known Christian objects ever found in Britain. 1400 years ago, just before the cross was made, our Anglo-Saxon ancestors were almost all pagans.
They worshipped gods like Woden and Thor and believed in ritual drinking and animal sacrifice. They thought they shared the world with witches, elves and dragons, and believed that spirits occupied the fields, trees and mountains.
At this time, Christianity was only being practiced by a very small minority. But within 100 years, pagan worship had disappeared and Christianity had taken over. How was it so successful? Surprisingly, one answer is here at All Hallows Church, just outside York. The church stands on what was one of the most important pagan sites there has ever been.
Well, it would have been an area of raised ground, the mound on which the church now sits. And that would have been a fenced enclosure, perhaps with a building in which there would have been sacrifice of oxen to the god Woden.
The head of the temple was a man by the name of Kofi, probably the most important pagan priest in England. One day he decided that the pagan gods just weren't doing it for him anymore and took drastic action.
Kofi is supposed to have stood up and said, I was the greatest of the followers of the pagan gods, and if they had any merit, they would have rewarded me better than anybody else. But because they didn't, perhaps we should look at following this new religion. Kofi mounted a stallion and took up a spear. He's said to have ridden up into the temple, through its fences, and profaned the site by throwing his spear at the idols that had once been worshipped here. Kofi had the enclosures and the temple itself burnt down.
In the hopes that the Christian god would offer him better opportunities, Kofi swapped sides and was baptized here in a small wooden building where York Minster now stands. This act started a spiritual revolution across the north of England. Nowadays, Christians frequently wear crosses around their necks, but this cross was one of the first ever to be worn following Kofi's dramatic gesture.
This beautiful building shows how powerful the church became and the central role it has played in our country. The Holderness Cross reminds us that that position is based on the faith of individuals. The woman who wore it was part of a revolution that didn't just bring a religion to Britain, it unified it for the first time in its history. Not under one king, but under one faith and one God.
However, Anglo-Saxon pagan gods didn't disappear entirely.
All that we have left of the Norse gods, Woden, Thor and Frigg, are the days of the week, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday.
The cross now resides at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, after they received a grant from the Art Fund to acquire it for £70,000.
Now, imagine finding a leak in the floor of your house, deciding to take a look, prizing open the floorboards, and finding a vast hoard of coins. That's exactly what happened to our next anonymous finder in 2010 in Hampshire.
But what was even more astonishing is that the coins weren't even English, they were French from the 1700s. And when the finder brought them here to the British Museum, there was another big shock in store. John Sargent met the man who investigated the finds, Rob Webley.
I'm going behind the scenes.
So he came in not just with a few, but 7,000 of the things in a large tub, came swaying in, put them on the table. We had to establish exactly what was going on in that tub.
That's 3.8 grams. What should it be?
Well, the French denier piece is officially meant to be 2.45 grams.
Oh, so these are much heavier.
These are about half as heavy again, yes.
Because they look coppery, don't they?
They do look very coppery and they've corroded terribly.
Yeah.
So the suggestion is they're not up to standard.
So what were your suspicions?
Well, we came to the conclusion that these weren't really coins at all.
Not coins?
Well, not official coins struck at the official mint, if you like.
Right, so they're forgeries?
That's what we suspect.
Gosh. But if they are forgeries, who made them and why? I'm going to check with one of the leading coin dealers in the country. Here are the coins. What do you think?
Very interesting indeed. Curious colour. These are called, or were called at the time, musketeers.
Right.
Because the cross on the coin resembled the cross on the uniform of the King's Musketeers.
Yeah.
Not made for circulation in France, made for the colonies.
In 1711, when the coins were minted, Britain, France and Spain were busy holding on to their colonies in America. Coins were in short supply. So even coins which were not legal tender in France would have been perfectly acceptable in America.
That's what they needed in the colonies. There was a shortage, a desperate shortage of coins for everyday transactions. If they were accepted and used in trade, they are coinage.
Right, so calling them fake may be a big mistake. They're not fake, they could be perfectly good coins.
They might be unofficial, but if they were used as coins,
they're coins.
They're coins.
It's very rare to find a hoard of imperfect coins like this, and that's why they're treasure to the British Museum. But what on earth were they doing in a house?
I guess we'll never know.
But it's amazing, isn't it? Because all the finds that we've seen today have been discovered by you, the great British public.
And if you want more information on our list of objects, or if you've found something you think the British Museum would like to see, then go to itv.com/treasure.
Tomorrow, some 3,000-year-old jewellery reveals Milton Keynes' glittering past.
I mean, that is just a serious lump of gold.
A glorious Roman tankard.
But the detail is incredible, isn't it?
And a 2,000-year-old blue-eyed bust is finally identified.
But look at those eyes.